There is a development challenge on this to get to the final product. And there's time in that. There's communication back and forth of moving and trial and error. In a typical RFP situation, request for proposal, often there's too many assumptions made too early that paint that corner too tight. You were very fortunate, I think, that this was a community project versus a municipal project, and you had that flexibility. They had that flexibility, and you could work that through. And I don't think that's often the case, though.
Correct. There's always a competitive process, so multiple companies are submitting their proposals. But in a situation where municipal tax dollars are being spent to create a park, it's pretty strict. There's a wish list or a budget or both, and all of the companies are kind of battling over who can deliver the design that has the best appeal to match those factors. In this scenario, and in that scenario, there isn't a lot of opportunity for now let's change things. In this process, because it was not municipal tax dollars, the community group had a lot more flexibility. The community group could say, let's see what you can do for X dollars, send that out to the 4 companies, and then pick the one they liked, and then let's change it. Let's do this, right. Let's change the colors, let's change the orientation, let's change the features. I spent a lot of time in Fergus over the last year or so. I attended meetings at Andy Spears' dining room table and met his family, and we were here in the winter where we saw the ice rink and where there was so much snow we didn't see the catch basin. we were here a number of times, and our installer and I were here twice to lay out the park before installation and excavation even started, just to make sure everything was going to fit properly. Because it's a complex design with no right angle, like there's no corners. It's a very organic design.
Excellent. Well, it worked out well, and I can, in talking with Andy in prior conversations and prior parts of this video, the municipality was highly involved, more with him and more as in a supportive role versus a directive role. And I think that certainly worked out well in this case.
It did, and I think the municipality was thrilled. They'd have to be thrilled that, here's a very large park where a lot of dollars were spent on the equipment and on the rubberized surfacing, and the town didn't have to dig into tax dollars the way they normally would in a project like this, and also the town didn't have to commit the resources to working on the design revisions.
Yes.
Andy and his group did that liaison with us directly. There really wasn't a lot of back and forth between us and the Township of Center Wellington, other than at the beginning and at the end.
Excellent. Now we'll get perhaps a little more into the actual design part that you did. You say you presented this, just a conceptual design that was published in the town for review from the community. Did they then come back to you with features they liked, features they wanted expanded and fine-tuned? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, they took the original they liked the original concept. I believe we tweaked it a little bit. We certainly did a complete color change and a complete positional change within the park. In terms of individual features, I think the group was kind of relying on our experience in terms of, they knew that they wanted a big playground and they knew they wanted special features for children with disabilities, but I don't think they were too super specific in terms of, well, we want this, we don't want that. There were a couple of specific items that they did want. Our rocking ship was one of those. They wanted a combination of some contemporary elements and some traditional elements, and as I said before, a complete color change. My original design was red, blue, and tan. and you can see behind me it's completely different from that. And I will admit that when the group told me they wanted these colors, I wasn't completely convinced, but the customer is always right, and I listen to the customer, and I have to admit it looks fantastic in this park, in this setting. I'm thrilled with this color combination.
The development of the Playspace, the development of the final design, my perception is that's critical to do. I often see in my line of business, in the inspection end, parks that are done in stages, that maybe after stage 2 the ambition wears off and stage 3 never gets done, or I see comments about, oh, I wish I had done this instead of that. Doing it on paper is clearly the way to do it. I'm sure that happened at some point along this line.
Yes, we prepared the original design, which was the complete park, but then there was some concern, more on my end, I think, than on the customer's end, but there was some concern that maybe all of the money wouldn't come in as fast as expected. Right. So what I did at that point is I worked the complete design into a 3-stage design so that they could put stage 1 in the park soon, and then build the remaining, keep that would hopefully build enthusiasm for the fundraising exercise, and then, okay, we've raised more money, we can do stage 2, and so this was maybe a contingency plan, and as it turned out, not needed at all, because the funds came in so much quicker than expected. It was, never mind this stage 1, 2, 3 stuff, we're doing it all, and we're doing it this summer.
Excellent. Well, the results speak for themselves. Now we get into the actual design of the structure itself. You've got 2 structures. The small structure is transfer landing accessible, and the main structure is ramp accessible. And what I found, and we go through the structure and you'll get a little more clear on that, is the ramps go the entire structure. It's not part ramps. There's not a compromise there of coming up to a 12 or 20 inch landing and that's it for the ramps. And part of the play value that we saw with the children directly was they got to experience the heights, and they got to experience the transfer onto the slide. Then when you're already up there is very minimal and very quick. It doesn't take a lot of effort to get for Haley in particular to get out of her chair and down the slide. That's a little unusual. And have you done many of those of that layout, or is it more of the compromise design?
Typically, it's more of a compromise design. It all comes down to the budget dollars available. We were shooting for the stars right off the bat. So the original concept did have a ramp going right up to the highest level on the senior structure. And that's the ideal. That's the optimum. It's while we try and serve children with different types of disabilities, we are always conscious of the child who is in a wheelchair or has another mobility device. And there's nothing more frustrating than seeing that child stuck halfway and they can't continue on the path and remain in their chair. Some children have to stay in their wheelchairs all the time, and so we want to make sure that they can experience as much as possible, and that for the children that do leave their wheelchairs, when they get to different spots on the ramp, there's different options. Right. You don't have to go down this slide every time. You could go down this slide this time, and next time you come up, exactly, try different things depending on the level of challenge that they're comfortable with.
Right. Excellent. And I see that, and I see the range here when we talk about the swings and the layout of having the saucer swing has certainly high play value for any child, but we did notice there is some or a very high degree of accessibility needs met by that saucer swing. It's at the end of the line, but it's not off to the side. It's still in the play environment, still much of the big part of the busy environment. and you've really packed that in there, and I see that as a very, very positive.
Thank you. Yeah, and the saucer swing was one of the elements that the community group did ask to be added to the park design. It's a relatively new product within within the Little Tykes commercial product line, and I have to say I'm blown away by the number of kids that I see on that saucer swing. I've got a picture I took the first time I came to this park after it was built and after it was open. There's 6 or 7 small children in that saucer, and it does function very well for children with disabilities. Any child who spends most of their time in a wheelchair needs stimulation of their vestibular system to help compensate for the fact that they don't normally have the balance stimulation. So it's an inner ear balance function, and anytime you can move a child from a wheelchair into something that rocks gently is very good for them, and the saucer swing really takes care of that nicely. The fact that the saucer swing is large, if that child can swing with a buddy, if 2 or 3 of them can swing in there together, regardless of whether they have disabilities or not, that's a win-win situation.